and by the way, only white South Africans, not black South Africans. How is that not a racist policy?
So South Africans are Africans. They are citizens of the nation of South Africa. They reside on the continent of Africa. For decades, this country, they are African. Whether they are white or black, they are African. And for decades, this country has taken in millions of refugees from several African nations that have been destabilized. Somalia, so much so that we've changed the entire demographic of a U.S. state, but Somalia.
Before we jump into this wild exchange, make sure to drop a comment below, smash that like button, and hit subscribe to help us keep growing. Things got completely surreal on CNN's NewsNight when Trump spokesperson Caroline Sunshine attempted to defend a deeply controversial policy, fast-tracking white South Africans as refugees while shutting out black African applicants. Her actual defense, pretending that because both groups are geographically from the continent of Africa, there's zero double standard or racial preference involved. Panelists like Leigh McGowan, PoliticsGirl, and Josh Doss were left visibly dumbfounded by the sheer mental gymnastics on display. Let's break down the clip and see how this absurd argument unfolded live on national television.
Tonight, a split screen of the Trump administration's treatment of refugees. As the Supreme Court gives the White House the green light to deport hundreds of thousands of legal migrants, like Haitians, we're learning now that at the same time, the White House is rolling out the red carpet for white South African refugees. According to the New York Times, the administration is putting together welcome bags that include an Android tablet, an American flag, copies of the Constitution, and literature sanitizing American and South African history, claiming that South Africa promotes discrimination against white people. They will also give the refugees a report commissioned by Trump downplaying the role of slavery in America's founding, and a children's book accusing South Africa's government of favoring the black population. Look, it is a fact that in the last year, since October 2025, 6,000 plus South African refugees have been allowed into this country. 3 have been allowed in from Afghanistan, and 0 people have been allowed in from anywhere else. How is that not a policy? And by the way, only white South Africans, not black South Africans. How is that not a racist policy?
So South Africans are Africans. They are citizens of the nation of South Africa. They reside on the continent of Africa. For decades, this country, they are African. Whether they are white or black, they are African. And for decades, this country has taken in millions of refugees from several African nations that have been destabilized. Somalia, so much so that we've changed the entire demographic of a U.S. state, but Somalia, Eritrea, South Sudan, Democratic Republic of the Congo.
What do all those places have in common?
We've taken in millions.
Yeah, well, what do all those places have in common, Caroline?
So now we're taking in, what they all have in common is every single one of those nations that I just listed, including South Africa, are African countries. And we've taken in millions from the others, but we're taking in 6,000 from South Africa, and everyone's up in arms.
All of those countries
that's
have
going on here, and actually
experiencing
6,000
war,
and it's embarrassing.
famine,
when we've
civil
taken in
war.
millions,
Don't do
all
that.
across
It's
so embarrassing. All are African.
It is not that, okay? Obviously, right? Those are places where there is actual conflict, where there is actual war, where people are actually being killed. Trump is basically saying the only people who we will let into this country are white people.
Yeah,
they're African.
He basically, no.
Whether they are white or black,
they
they're
are
African,
white
and
people.
they're facing
Caroline,
racial
you are making us
persecution in
look
their country
ridiculous
with
right
the
now.
expropriation
You are
act
making us look
that the
ridiculous. This is a completely racist argument. You can keep talking, but it's completely racist. If I say only white people are allowed in, it's racist. It is racist. And then they gave them a gift bag of basically white Christian supremacist propaganda.
Okay, all right,
I don't know
guys,
why you're going on about this. It makes us look absolutely idiotic.
Back up. Josh, back up. This is like I don't even know where to start with this. Is this how you actually feel? Like are you giving your real opinions right now? I feel like this is not how you actually feel about this
The United States has had an extremely generous refugee policy in regards to several African nations. Now that South Africa is one of them, there's a problem. When was the problem? When we were taking in millions from every other destabilized African
and it's embarrassing.
This is very deliberately obtuse, I would say. I'm going to kind of skip over some of this and say...
Can somebody explain the Expropriation Act then in South Africa and what's going on there?
No, we don't want to do that,
Caroline, the first thing about that is that what you're saying, that Expropriation Act, no property has been expropriated. You know that, right?
No, that's not true.
It is true.
You read the executive order that the Trump administration wrote.
No property has actually been expropriated.
I think there's 6,000 South Africans that would beg to differ.
So you're talking about something that is basically hypothetical, when here's the reality of life in South Africa. 3 decades after apartheid, which apartheid means that black people were subjected to laws that prevented them from living as equal citizens. Black South Africans, who account for more than 80% of the country's 63 million people, face far higher unemployment than their white counterparts, 35.8% compared to 8%, okay? White households average almost 5 times more wealth than black families. So, okay, in South Africa, I'm sure they have plenty of problems internally, but this idea that there is a genocide happening in South Africa against white people is fictitious. Here's one person who was brought into this country as a refugee. He says he left behind a Jaguar sports car, a Range Rover, and what he estimates to be property worth at least $300,000. He plans to sell them all so that he can come to the United States as a refugee. Meanwhile, we're saying to Americans, don't go to Haiti because you might die, but we want to send 350,000 asylum seekers, essentially, back to Haiti because Stephen Miller doesn't like Haitians.
Well, because it's a different program.
I don't think it's because Stephen Miller doesn't like Haitians. I think because
he said as much.
Okay, but I think the Supreme Court of the United States made that ruling. I don't think it's based on the executive branch.
Because the administration wants to deport them, yes.
Okay, but the judicial branch had 6 pretty intelligent lawyers who decided that
they were going to bend their will to
but Arthur, what is the logic of a policy that lets a guy with a Range Rover and a Jaguar sports car in as a refugee, but not someone literally fleeing essentially a civil war?
I don't know the answer to that.
Well, the answer is...
I'm always honest with you. I don't have an answer to that.
If I can, I think we can back it up again to the gift bags. What other group of people have we brought into the country and given gift bags to?
Well, we've given a lot of Somalian refugees $18 billion worth of fraud to buy their own Range Rovers here. I think that's pretty generous of the American taxpayer.
Fraud you're talking
that's
about,
quite a gift bag.
And let me tell you, we don't
predominantly committed by Somalian
We got to go quickly.
I'm just going to say this is America at its most familiar to me, opening its arms very wide open to white immigrants and not black immigrants, and then telling you not to believe your eyes.
Are South Africans African?
Right.
Are white South Africans African?
Next for us, we're going to read some of your feedback.
So, when you examine how MAGA defenders handle policies with clear racial bias, Caroline Sunshine's performance on CNN wasn't an isolated gaffe. It's a calculated rhetorical strategy. When a policy is blatantly discriminatory on its face, defenders don't try to defend the discrimination. Instead, they attempt to erase the distinction by flattening the category. Claiming that fast-tracking white South Africans while shutting down refugee intake for black Africans is normal simply because they're both from Africa is an attempt at intellectual sleight of hand. Panelists Leigh McGowan, PoliticsGirl, Josh Doss, and anchor Abby Phillip refused to play along. The reaction from the panel wasn't just anger. It was total bewilderment at an argument so hollow it barely warranted a rebuttal. The policy disparity itself is undeniable. While the administration drastically capped overall global refugee admissions, thousands of white South Africans have been prioritized and fast-tracked, relying on narratives about land reform and white persecution that mainstream human rights groups and foreign policy experts reject. Meanwhile, refugees fleeing active war zones, documented violence, and humanitarian crises across black African nations and elsewhere have seen their applications stalled or shut down entirely. Equating 2 vastly different groups under the umbrella of geographic proximity ignores economic reality, historical context, and basic logic. What are your thoughts on this exchange? Drop a comment down below, hit the like button, and help us reach our next milestone by subscribing to the channel.